Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our planning board meeting, workshop, all of that good stuff for Tuesday, February 6th, 2024. We want to call this meeting to order. We have 3 items on the agenda. For anyone that is looking to familiarize themselves with the rules of proceedings, you can find that on the planning website. But at this point, we'll have our first project, which is a development plan review for 64 Colvin Avenue. Casino Group, Hirschberg and Hirschberg representing. Mixed use neighborhood center construction of 108,504 square foot multi-unit dwelling to accommodate 120 dwelling units and a 1-story 3,654 square foot building for general retail. We'll be listening pretty much tonight, but wanted to give you an opportunity to present. I know you've been on this project for quite some time, so the floor is yours.
I'd like to say I'm getting old for this project, but I'm getting old for other reasons too. But I'm gonna let Andy Brick go first, because he's gonna talk first about a waiver we're requesting, and then I'll go through the PowerPoint if you don't mind.
Hi, good evening. Andy Brick from the Brick Law Firm on behalf of Casino. In your packet, you'll see that we've submitted a letter requesting a waiver from a specific design standard. As you know, the USDO Article 4 contains design standards for both buildings and streetscapes, but also in the development plan review section gives the ability to request waivers when justified, and you have the ability to consider waivers. We're requesting one very specific waiver, and it relates to which side of the building is going to be our primary entrance point. Under the USDO design standards, every principal building shall have one or more pedestrian entry doors facing and visible from an adjacent public street. Where we're requesting the waivers from the requirement that the primary pedestrian entrance of every building giving access to a principal use of the property must directly face a street or a public space, such as a central garden or courtyard, opening directly onto the primary street. We're requesting a waiver because, as you recall, we're in the corner of the old Armory property, and we are surrounded from the west from a hillside. On the north, the vast majority of our northern exposure is the Armory building itself, which is now a self-storage facility. The east side of our building faces the back of our commercial building, which is along Colvin, and our southerly exposure faces Anthony Street, which is the entrance into the park. Anthony Street is not considered by the city to be a public street. It's considered to be an entrance to the park. We are proposing our primary entrance facing to Anthony Street and pedestrian accessibility to Anthony Street, but because it's not considered a public street, technically we don't meet that streetscape or building design that I read. So we exercise the authority allowed to request a waiver. In the section of where the building design, where your primary pedestrian entrance has to be, there are 5 criteria. We meet 4 of them. The only one we don't meet is that it is facing to a public street. Now, it is facing to what is actively utilized as a street, but it's actually considered the park entrance. So as a result of that, we've been advised by planning that the waiver would be required. The reason we believe that is the best way to face our primary entrance is pretty simple. If you go around the property from the 4 points of the compass, and I'm sure you're all familiar with the property, if we faced it to the west, it would be looking at the hill. You know, that would be the back of the building looking at the hill. It makes no sense to have our primary entrance from the west. We could do our primary entrance facing north, but in effect, when you walked out of the entrance, what you would be looking at is the side of the Armory building. So from an attractive design standard, we just didn't think it was appropriate to have people walk out of the building looking directly at the side of the self-storage. Our proposal is, when you walk out of the building, you walk along the pedestrian sidewalk and you are right through the tree buffer into a park. You're at the park entrance and you're at Westland Hills Park, which we think is a much better ingress and egress point than bringing people in through the parking lot that looks at the self-storage facility. The other possibility that we looked at was facing south. But again, it's a viewscape from exiting the building. If we put the primary entrance on the south side, it would be facing the parking lot and the rear of the building on Colvin Avenue. So I would submit that when this design standard was created, it didn't envision being the second building. Our Colvin Avenue building, the commercial building up front, meets this criteria. The primary entrance faces Colvin Avenue. But to have the apartment building primary entrance face Colvin Avenue, you'd in effect be facing the back of the commercial building rather than Colvin Avenue itself. So we just think it makes much more design sense to have the pedestrian ingress and egress from Anthony Street, from the park-like setting, rather than from one of the parking lots or facing the hillside on the back western side. So that's our justification why we believe it's the appropriate side of the building to have the pedestrian entrance. No vehicular traffic would be accessed through Anthony Street. Vehicular traffic would still come in through Colvin, but the pedestrian sidewalk will come out of the large primary entrance and go to Anthony Street. But that does require a waiver because Anthony Street isn't technically a public street. So that's the justification of why we're requesting it.
Is it worthwhile, if you folks want to ask some questions about that to Andy, maybe you take care of that first and I'll back up and do my PowerPoint?
Let me do a little housekeeping first and then I'll pose the question. We wanted to be sure we all introduced ourselves on the record. So Chris Ellis, Chair of the Planning Board, long day. Joined by Martin Hall, Shadi Kennedy, and Lanessa Gilliard, all members of the board, Rachel and Bridester in abstention. Council, staff, all here, thank you again for joining tonight. Do we want to have a discussion about the waiver now or get through the PowerPoint?
How much is left of the PowerPoint?
It's a very quick PowerPoint. What I do is I go through and I compare what we last submitted in November to what it is today. Been a few changes, but it's a very quick PowerPoint presentation.
Do we need that? What he's a comparison between.
No, I think the waiver kind of stands on its own.
I agree too.
Okay, now I'm welcome to it.
Well, I don't have to make a PowerPoint presentation.
We're trying to make your job easier,
Yeah,
look at that.
You can read it, it's got the data right on it. I was just gonna read off my title, so.
So let's discuss the waiver now. Shawty, did you have something you wanted to?
I had a question, you described very well the one criteria you're sort of trying to reach, what are the 4 criteria that you have?
Sure, so, well, under section 374-407, which is building and streetscape design, subsection 3B, as in boy, primary pedestrian entrances. The first criteria is each principal building shall have 1 or more operating pedestrian entry doors facing and visible from an adjacent public street. Well, we have that. We have the visible in the commercial up front, we meet that. Our entry door is facing the public street. We would meet that for the apartment building if Anthony Street was a public street, but because it's not considered a public street, although it acts like one and everybody driving by would think it's one, we don't meet it for the second building. The second one is the one we definitely don't meet. The primary pedestrian entrance of every principal building giving access to a principal use of the property must directly face a street or public space. Arguably, we are facing a public space. A park entrance, a park would be a public space. But then it goes on to say, opening directly onto a primary street. And so we're definitely not, if we believe Anthony Street's a public street, the city believes it's a park entrance. We're not gonna fight that fight with them, we requested the waiver instead. The third is that the primary public entrance shall be prominently located, easily identifiable, relate to the human scale, and contribute to the overall design intent. We believe we meet all of that. It's a large primary entrance access point. I don't know if you can go to one of the slides that actually shows the southerly side of the building. And it's directly next to the children's playground. It's going to be landscaped along the approach as well as at the doorway itself. I should also let you know that's from the southwest corner looking northeast, so on those pictures, our entrance point would be to the left, behind that car that's exiting, I think, a little further back. And it's going to be directly next to the children's playground area and landscaped from the door to Anthony Street. Vecino has recently brought on board a landscape architect to assist them with the landscape design, and the plans are a lot better than they were before they had a landscape architect involved. But it's going to be a landscaped approach to a traditional, primary entrance. It's going to be clear as you're approaching, it's the primary entrance, and it's to the human scale, and it meets the design intent. The primary public entrance shall be at grade, we're at grade, and seamlessly integrate required handicapped accessibility, no question. Our entire building is going to be handicapped accessible, so we meet that, it's at grade, it's handicapped accessible. And the fifth is the location of the primary pedestrian entrance on the building facade shall be emphasized with surrounding architectural recesses, projections, or foundation plantings. And again, we have brought on board the landscape architect who's going to submit a landscape plan that has it really nicely designed around the entrance, as well as you walk out to Anthony Street.
And so when you have that final design of the entry and the signage, will you resubmit so we can sort of review that
Yes,
as
yes,
a comprehensive
Yes,
package?
we're working on a landscape package that you will see, it was, I believe, one of the comments from PRC as well.
Right.
Let's see, I have a quick question. A lot of the stuff that someone living at the building might want to walk through is kind of over by the central Coleman intersection. Will there be walkways from this entrance over to Coleman in order to?
We have
After the bus?
For the bus accessibility?
Yes.
we have handicap accessibility sidewalk that shows on that plan that starts at Colvin Avenue at our driveway, has a sidewalk on the side of it, handicap accessible. Goes along that commercial building, there's a crosswalk across that driveway. It then hits the sidewalk that goes down the side of our building, and that's all handicap accessible. And goes around the building, it's all handicap accessible, and handicap parking is also on that side of the building, closest to Anthony Street. So
I think that's a great question, because accessibility really does start with public transportation.
Yeah.
Right?
It's an excellent question, and I should have mentioned it. The way the public street primary entrance is defined in here, we have to show it Anthony Street. But recognizing that a significant amount of pedestrian traffic may be trying to get to, for example, Hannaford or more to the north, you can just see it there on the south end of the building. The sidewalk wraps from the front entrance, which you can't see because it's around the back of the building, all the way around the building. And as Dan said, there's a crosswalk across the back parking lot and comes right along the side of the commercial building and to access Colvin right there at the southerly intersection. So for example, handicapped accessibility, it's fully handicapped accessibility from that intersection of Colvin all the way to the door, as it is from Anthony Street. Clearly, anybody going north would take the Anthony Street and go out that way, and going south. Anybody going north can go right around the building. You can see all of the sidewalk there.
Okay. Oh, and where is the entrance on this?
The easiest, it's tough with my eyes, but the easiest way to see it is you can see the entrance, this path, the sidewalk coming in, right,
Right there. Okay.
the sidewalk coming in from Anthony.
Yeah.
We're on the screen.
And we also need a cat. To chase it around.
Right.
Okay.
This doesn't work on
Oh, there is one. So you have that.
So this schematic helps a little bit, so you see, if the door was facing west, it's right into that hillside. If the door is facing north, it's pretty much into the Armory building. If it's facing east, it's into the back of our commercial building out front.
an attractive rear of the building, but still gonna be a building.
Yeah, it's nice looking, but you're still looking at the back of the building. Whereas where we propose it, you walk out or you approach the building from Anthony Street, which is, it's a nice street. It's well maintained, it's landscaped, we're doing our landscape buffer, so you're gonna cross through the landscape buffer on our property line and then hit the crosswalk across our property and then hit the plantings and the landscape design around the building. It's a much nicer approach, there's no question.
So. This is just more because I'm visual.
Mhm.
Coming down Central Avenue, take a left on the Colvin, take a right into your parking lot, and then a left to go around to what's essentially the back of the building. Am I right in saying that?
Technically, it would be the front, if you made the
Well, you're
left and
making
went
it the
around,
front, but I would
yes,
think it to,
yes.
okay,
So there's still parking on both sides of the building,
yeah, I
but you have to pick one to be your primary entrance, and then under the design standard, it has to face a public street. So there's still, you can still make that left and come in and park and go in the front door, or you can park on the east side and go in the side door. The side door will be accessible to residents, it just can't be our primary entrance.
Yeah, there are people leaving the building that wanna go to Colvin Avenue and go up towards Central. Wouldn't necessarily go out the front entrance, there's a side
Yeah,
entrance
that's
that's
right.
right, goes right into that same sidewalk that goes around the building,
So that leads me to two questions. Number one, will there be any signage to let people know that they need to go around? Because the entrance is now facing Anthony Street and not facing the main parking lot corridor? Because I'm just saying, for me, if I'm going looking for a business, I understand aesthetics and looks and what you're facing. I'm looking at the front entrance being the easiest accessible to me once I enter the parking lot. And that's not really the easiest accessible once I enter the parking lot, so is there a way to direct people for them to know you gotta go around?
Yeah.
And
we'll have a signage package that will include
okay,
an arrow when they come to that area saying main entrance with an arrow to the left to tell people to go that direction. We make it part of the Freedom Springs actual sign, Freedom Springs, and say entrance or management office or whatever else it says to the left, so that will direct people to go there.
perfect. And then my second question is, will there be accessibility? I know you said there's gonna be that side entrance accessibility, but if I'm a resident and I'm parking my car on the what would now be the rear of the building, will I be able to exit that rear of the building as well? Or would I have to walk all the way around, either from the side entrance or the main entrance?
So let's can we take a look back at the site plan one more time, so I can explain it.
Yeah, my
better.
eyes are old, so I can't see it.
You're closer than me.
We're gonna pull up a larger image of it.
Okay,
Okay, the main parking is obviously on the side towards the park and
right,
the bullet between us and the commercial building and the bullet at the back, all of those are easily identifiable and as close to entrances as we can make them. The amount of parking, although we have 86 parks, the experience, 86 parking spaces, the experience with affordable housing is you have much less need for parking than that. We did that so that if in fact, you know, visitors, you do have minimal staff, you do have some visiting people that might come to provide services. But we think that the 86 parking spots is more than enough so that people will be able to find convenient parking spaces. Well, that's the existing parking.
yeah, that's not necessarily my question though, it's just, you know, if my apartment if your side entrance is on the left and my apartment's all the way to the right, and I park in what's now the rear, I don't wanna go all the way to the left to come back to the right.
Right.
So that's basically my question.
And my understanding, and I've confirmed this with the casino, is for security purposes, all doors except the primary entrance will be locked during the day, but they will be, you can go out them. You can exit the building through any door.
So they won't have access to it they won't have like key access or anything?
They might, that's the
They
question I
might?
have to ask, that's
Okay.
possible.
Whether or not there's a key or fob entrances.
Right,
That can
well,
be used.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But if you take a look at the parking, if you visualize people in that unit there, they're identified by the entrances, and there's, there might be people entering from the side, but they'll go in the front door, but that left-hand side of the building, the one closest to the park, the west end of our site, is very convenient for the front entrance. It's not like a shopping center where you have a long walk to the entrance. It's only 150 feet from the furthest parking spot to that. So and it's a little bit longer if the side door wasn't open. If the side door wasn't open, they didn't have a fob for it, they'd have maybe a 300-foot walk from the furthest parking spots. These are not, it always looks like a lot of parking, but compared to code, we're about half.
No, I saw that in the plans.
Yeah, so we did reduce the amount of parking.
I saw that in the plans. Okay, thank you.
So we did go through the belt.
In our own way.
Yeah.
Any additional questions? Any follow-up questions from staff?
So, the applicant noted we circulated, the project went back before the city's technical review committee, which is the, bunch of city departments where we meet internally to discuss the project and go over the technical elements. So we discussed this for a third time, a week ago, a little over that, and they've been provided with those comments. They are, relatively minor in nature, but a couple of them that kind of have come up today, especially in regards to the waiver, are we'd be looking to have sidewalks installed on the north side of Anthony Street, especially if the waiver is gonna be considered by the planning board. If am I going back to the site plan? So there is a path that goes through, pedestrian path that goes through from the main entrance to Anthony Street. Kind of on the left-hand side here. So there is a slight grade change, so we'd want some information on that, just to make sure it's, accessible to as many people as possible, but also the existing pathway on Anthony Street to the park currently exists on the southern side of Anthony Street, and it's just a asphalt strip essentially. What we ideally would prefer, and this is from traffic and the police department as well, would be for a city spec sidewalk of 5 feet to run on the northern side of Anthony Street. This way we're moving all pedestrians in the same manner in a safe way. And then just also being mindful that, especially during the summer times, a lot of people park on Anthony Street, to access the park. So we'd want to be mindful of where we would place the sidewalk, where the pathway from the entrance to Anthony Street and the park actually goes, because we want to make sure it's clear that it's designed in such a way where people aren't going to be parking and blocking that access. Police department did provide some feedback, just saying they would like to see some details on the potential use of cameras for the rear of the property. Acknowledging that it provides access now for the fire department and other emergency services to get all the way around the building, whereas previously it didn't. But they would like to see what the what the plan is for for the operational procedures. So police department said they'd be happy to have additional conversations, so whoever,
Is that with the fire department?
this would be the police department.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we do show a circulation pattern around it, and we do have an easement with the gate with a Knox box on it to go out through the Armory garage on Central Avenue.
Okay.
It goes, the roadway goes around the building, and that piece that goes up towards the north, actually, that extension goes right through onto Armory Garage's property, so it's unencumbered to get entirely around the building.
So I think for the police department's comments were less in regards to the access now, but more just in regards to there's somewhat limited visibility back there. So they, which happens with many sites, but they would wanna see some kind of plan for cameras and just if the operator has some type of plan that they typically use for, daily maintenance. And then just kind of reiterating that we'll work with the landscape architect to design it in such a way that, provides the most safety and then lighting to accommodate. Comments from the fire department were specifically about the need for additional fire hydrants.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they happy with the access, cause previously it was difficult for them to get a large truck around it. Now they have that ability, but I believe there's only 1 or 2 hydrants on the site, so they're looking for an additional 1 to 2 at minimum, and they said typically having them spaced about 800 feet apart. I know one of them, there's an existing city, one that might technically be on 66 Colvin, but I think we just need to work with the water department to establish any shared utilities between the 2 sites.
That's actually on a piece of pipe that the city owns. That's a city-owned pipe, and the hydrant's owned by the city.
Yeah.
So it's fully accessible fire hydrant. The site which property they're finding fire on in the 66 or 64, they have access to that hydrant. That's actually in a pretty good position for fighting a fire on this building. It's sort of in the middle of the L. But we only have one other hydrant on the site, so the question is, would we run another water main all the way around to the back of the building and up the rear side to get a shorter hose pull?
And work with the fire hydrant, fire department as to where they would like to access.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they didn't specify to us exactly where, so leaving it to
Yeah.
to you to plot that out and they can confirm essentially.
Yeah, I can visualize where they want them to keep the hose pull down. Sort of makes sense about halfway down the side towards Anthony Street, and then sort of at the end of the parking on the side of the building. That would get them pretty good hydrant spacing.
Other comments are specific to traffic, so CME is working on behalf of the city reviewing the traffic plan. As everyone probably remembers, this project went through seeker review for the entire site, so 64, 66 Colvin, and 944 Central. So as part of that, we took a look at the traffic study, but CME is still working on some of the final touches between the different sites, and that would include this one. There's notes specifically on the Colvin Ave mid-block crossing. So just please add those details to the revised site plan specifically for the RRFB signals. And then additional signage showing to drivers that there's going to be a crossing down the street.
Yeah, I thought we had a detail of the crossing in advance, the sign 100 feet in advance of that, 100 feet in both directions. We'll check it out. We've done a number of those recently, and they're certainly bright and visible.
Yep. Other notes, this has already gone through referral to the Albany County Planning Board for their recommendation. And our recommendation from reviewing agencies so far, so from the chief planning official and the planning department, we would recommend deferring the consideration or action on the waiver that's presented tonight so that we can have more time to review it, and we know there's public that would like to speak on behalf of that. General Services is in the middle of reviewing the revised plans. They submitted a comment letter in 117 to the applicant. Similarly, with the Water Department, they're reviewing plans from 117 and should have a comment letter out to the applicant as well. And the city engineer has gone through, they just noted that there's some minor elements of the plan that need to address a previously issued letter from January 2nd. And I believe that covers everything. I don't know if there's any questions for staff.
And our plan is to be able to respond to those. We're working on most of the responses already. We're gonna get you the landscape plan. We'll look at the hydrants. We'll talk to our clients about the idea of the sidewalk on Anthony Street. But we think we are in a position, and I totally understand you wanna think about the waiver request. It's the first time I heard it tonight. But we think we'd be in a position to get resubmitted and hopefully be back on your next available agenda for consideration of all the actions necessary.
One question, Avi, did they mean the sidewalk the entire length of the north side of Anthony Street going both to Colvin Avenue and back towards the park? Because it sort of dead ends when it gets to the park, but on the other side, it actually, there's a sidewalk around the parking lot and then sort of where that building is for the swimming pool, that building there.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, it would certainly go to the corner of Colvin and Anthony, but I would have to confirm with,
Yeah, whether or not they
Traffic
want to go
or-
back to
Yep.
the other direction.
yeah, we'll let you know.
Yeah, okay. That's a typical walk to nowhere, because again, when you have a walk that has connectivity on the other side, we probably encourage them to go that way. But if they want a sidewalk on both sides, we'll present that to them.
Okay. Yeah, we'll coordinate on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next is a demolition review for 45 Libel, 166 Livingston Street, 169 Second Street, 251 Third Street, 403 and 407 First Street, and 453 Elk Street. The applicant is the Albany County Land Bank. And our action today is for a demolition review. Evening.
Evening. Do you want me to go just give an overview of the project again, or for folks who weren't here last time, or just kind of go over new stuff?
I don't need that, demo is pretty
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
straightforward. Good morning. Staff, you guys good? Is there anything you wanna review?
I would just suggest maybe recapping what you supplemented the record with. So just like the revised engineering reports.
Yeah,
Right, there's additional.
Yep, since it was last reviewed last month, we did get updated letters from the engineer for six of the 8 buildings, basically saying they weren't safe enough for even an asbestos surveyor to go in there and look at it. 2 of them didn't meet that level, but again, with the cost per square foot that we're showing, I gave other projects examples of what the cost per square foot was for other things that we've had funded. And we're looking somewhere around $225 to $250 per square foot. So with the cost of the 2 that weren't asbestos and demo with asbestos in place, they far exceeded the value of what the land bank would be able to resell them for.
So I misunderstood, I thought that they had already been surveyed.
No, so the engineer said that 6 of them could not be surveyed. The other two that could are usually not surveyed until we have the approval.
I see.
And it goes with the bid package to the demolition contract.
Alright, any additional questions from the board? Avi or Jocelyn, any additional comment from staff?
So it's a unlisted action under seeker, so this does require determination of significance. We would recommend, in this case, that a negative declaration be made here or be declared. We have received recommendations from the Albany County Planning Board, essentially deferring to the planning board. Would note that 2 of the buildings, 164 Livingston and 166 Livingston, were constructed around 1840, so they're actually on our list of the 100 oldest homes within the city. But they are pretty far deteriorated, so we would want to note that for the record. And essentially just taking into account that the land bank has taken properties that are, in almost all situations, typically not in the best condition, and that they've made efforts to rehab or sell these properties so that they could be rehabbed, but in this case, these do not appear like they were able to be saved, unfortunately. They are primarily they're within 2 zoning districts, so we have the R2 zoning district and the RT zoning district. I think that makes a difference when considering the contextual impact that demolishing a property would have, as these are not in like a mixed use district where we'd want all the properties pulled up to the street and you're trying to build that street wall. And lastly, just notes, really more for the applicant, but the general services and the water department will want to see, they'll want confirmation of the water and sewer disconnect. They'll need that specifically for the demolition permit, but also for the DGS right-of-way permit, which will be required since they'll have to get access from the right-of-way. And we would ultimately look for any sidewalks that are being damaged and or that are damaged to be replaced where appropriate, and that would just be going through the Department of General Services. Those are not conditions, they're just comments that we wanted to pass along. And just referring the board back to the criteria that the code sets for demolition review, we believe it meets these criteria, and that the hardship, primarily being that the hardship here is not self-created, and that the applicant kind of inherited, or has taken on properties to rehab and or find a better end use. So we would recommend approval of the demolition plan reviews.
Thank you very much. That being said, is there a motion for seeker determination of significance for a negative declaration?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a negative declaration for seeker. All in favor? Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Our second item, agenda item, or action item on this agenda item is, is there a motion to approve the demolition review for demolition review number 0164, number 0147, number 0148, number 0149, number 0150, number 0151, number 0152, and number 0153. Again, that's, I think I said the first one wrong, it's 0146. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 properties as listed on our screen and in our packets. Is there a motion to approve the demolition?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Martin, seconded by Lanissa to approve the demolition of the 8 properties aforementioned and listed. Is there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, and the motion carries. Thank you very much. Thank you guys. Third and final item on tonight's agenda is a development plan review for 222 Spruce Street, where our applicant is 222 Spruce Street LLC. This is in a mixed-use community urban, and the proposal is for the addition of 4 stories to an existing single-story building in accommodation of 48 dwelling units.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Dylan. I am the project coordinator. This is Patrick Chu, owner.
Hi, everybody, again.
Alright, so 222 Spruce Street is gonna be our second phase of our Spruce Street development. Like was said, it was earlier, it's right now a 1-story garage, and then we're gonna build 4 stories up. It's gonna be including a 38 apartments, commercial sites on the first floor, and then apartments on the second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Would you like me to go to the next slide?
Yeah, this is good.
I think you guys also have a clicker right there that can help you go from slide to slide.
Just go to the.
Okay.
You wouldn't mind just providing context to what's on the screen for the board?
Yeah, so this is the elevation drawings here. This is gonna be like the side of the building from the east. The first floor is gonna have a garage, and then after that, there's gonna be 9 feet for each apartment on each floor.
So this is the existing building right now, so you guys all have a general idea of what the building looks like there now. So it's 1 story, formerly was, I think, a car shop at one point. There was a fire in it. I think most of you guys know I did the old Fry Hopper's Bakery, which is down the street. Remember that, we were successful with that development, so this is my second phase. We're adding an extra about 15 feet on the side of the building to incorporate elevator in this phase for this building. We didn't do that on our first phase because I didn't know what the area was gonna, what was gonna happen with the area. I think that with the success of that first project, we're able to do that in this project. This shows you guys the elevation, will give you guys an idea of window sizes and the facade and the general look of what we're going for this style of building. Should be one. Oh,
It's not working.
there we go. We do have interior parking. I know that we are short a little bit, so we are gonna be requesting some type of parking waiver. Now, I believe I spoke to Brad, and we were able to come up with some points to kind of help with, I guess, reducing the parking requirement. We were gonna have bike racks, and we were gonna provide bikes on site. Also, in our lobby, we're gonna provide a real-time TV that kind of shows the bus schedule. And I think that hit certain points to kind of reduce. I don't think we were that off. I think we were off by like 10 spots, maybe, something like that. 12? Those 12 spots? 10. This kind of shows you guys the block study of the building. We have a mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms and studios also. This kind of shows you the unit mix, 1 and 3 bedrooms, 800 to 1,300. Our general rents are gonna be $900 to 2,000. We are looking for financing right now with local lenders. And yeah, do you guys have any questions?
Yeah.
There's a lot.
Ask away.
Rocks, paper, scissors, who goes first? I just wanna be very clear on the expectations for the building. Are you planning, I think it's saying that you're building on top of what's already existing?
Correct.
Okay,
We're not expanding except for the 10 feet that's on site to accommodate the elevator.
oh, no, fair. And then,
Can we go back to the elevation to show that?
yeah, that's why I asked the question.
Where is it existing?
If you guys look on the site plan, you see that little bottom left area over there? That kind of juts out.
Right,
To the
that-
left, yeah.
The little,
the little
Yeah, the
thing,
little thing,
yeah.
yeah.
and where does it show it on the elevation?
This would be on the right
Is that
side.
right?
Yeah, correct, see that right little,
Okay,
Kinda
where
like
the arrows are pointed, it looks
Correct.
like arrows from here, it could be words, but,
so you have 3 banks of windows and you have the right side over there. That's
Okay.
that's where it would be, it's kind of recessed back.
so then where would the, so you're saying that there's going to be parking underneath, which I'm going to assume is going to be in the building that's already existing.
Correct, so this shows
Right.
you guys the parking schematic.
Then the question is, where's the commercial space going?
In the front of the building too, so to the left of where all the spots are, that's the commercial space. I wish I had a pointer right now, but you guys see the parking space?
I think in the first
It
one,
might work on the middle button there should be. It might not show up on the
Okay.
screen, but
and so,
Oh, there we go.
yeah,
Right there.
and then the question is.
Oh, that was good.
If I'm coming to visit the commercial space, where am I gonna park? Cause I don't live there, so I don't think I would have easy access.
If
Based
you were
on your
gonna,
schematics.
yeah, there's no parking in the commercial space.
And you're saying that there's going to be studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms?
Correct,
Are there going to be any affordable housing?
yes.
Okay, is there a percentage?
It's a percentage based on what.
That's based on your app,
Correct.
okay,
Correct, yeah.
It should be 3.
It's for the, yeah, it's
3%, okay.
3 units.
3 units?
Yeah, correct.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Can you walk us through how the car will get in and out? Can you just lay it out for me?
How do we blow this thing? Blow this up.
you're gonna zoom in.
Can we zoom into the parking?
And then,
So in the middle of that, there's a garage door,
I
so
see that,
correct, they would just come in and out that way,
so there'd just be one,
one way in, yeah.
okay, and there's enough room?
There's enough room
Okay.
for the cars to get in and out, yeah.
And then where do you envision your ADA spots?
In the front, yeah,
So you're gonna label them and then they have that space between?
correct.
Okay, so that, you gotta lay that out a little clearer.
Yeah, this is our initial, just to kind of give you guys an overview of the project, we're gonna get into a lot more detail later.
Uh-huh.
Now, what are your plans for security around the area, lighting, cameras, things of that nature?
We're gonna have cameras and lighting,
You know,
yeah, we had that at 242 Spruce too, I didn't know that was a requirement to show on the plans.
well, not necessarily, but you know, the area, the neighborhood's in transition. And so.
I know,
when
I'm
it's-
there
I
every
know.
day.
Yeah, so when it's in transition, weird things happen, and you know, if I'm coming in, because you know, where you're at, you're right in between 2 very major bus stops. you know, and you're on a major thoroughfare. So if I'm coming, if I'm coming into the area, new, hip, whatever, I should wanna feel safe, so even though.
Right, so we have full security like at 242, right? We
Okay,
have full security throughout the buildings, on every lobby. And I can pull it up on my phone right now and see exactly who's going in and out of the building. Which is what we plan on doing in this building also. So yeah, I mean, it's bad. Yeah.
No, yeah, I own a house only for a couple of them, so.
Yeah.
I'm very familiar, and like I said, it's in transition, so it's not a bad area. I grew up in Arbor Hill, my father grew up in Arbor Hill,
And hopefully as we do more of these, it gets better, right? It's kind of like my plan.
Right.
So there's some just general site plan questions that I think you're probably gonna get to, like the curb cuts, where the street lines are.
Did we not have one of those?
Was it in this?
Well, because the thing is already existing, they already have curb cuts.
It's in
But
there
is
somewhere.
it necessary, like, do they have to redo curbs?
They may have to improve the sidewalk or what have you, but they already
If we
have the
blow
curb
this
cut.
up, it should show this, the curb cut and
They're,
We'll touch on some of that with the staff comments, but
Got it.
certainly is a level of detail that's not provided in the plans that are submitted.
He said that the plans were.
In terms of identifying curb cuts, dimensions, things like that, it'll have to be on the next submittal of plans.
yeah,
Yeah.
good, cause I think it'll clarify
A lot.
the egress.
does it not show curb cuts on this plan right now?
I know.
Oh, no doubt.
And it's not gonna directly.
Mm-mm.
Thanks. Question?
Oh, you guys are done? Oh, okay.
No, it seemed like there was more questions.
Okay.
No, we were just talking.
Staff's turn.
So, we received, update submission, I believe Delaney submitted it on the second. Based on the staff report that Brad provided, there's the inclusionary zoning form, that's submitted, we're good on that, but essentially everything else needs to be still, provided. The details that are provided, the sidewalks are called out and the curbs are called out, but the dimensions aren't provided, where the improvements are gonna be made isn't provided. For example, the recreation area, it's not called out or provided as to how you plan on meeting that requirement of the 10%. The laundry facilities, if they're going to be in the units or there's going to be an area, the detail isn't in there yet, that should be included. The agreement for the encroachment for the corporation council, if and when you make that connection with corporation council, loop us in and provide us the update as to what that.
What was that with Corporation Council?
So the elevation drawings show stairs and a ramp to the front entrance. Proposed for the commercial retail space, it falls on the city right of way. So that encroachment would need to have some kind of agreement with the city, that would be corporation council.
Got it.
So we, reach out to them and loop us in as to what that is. The impervious surface coverage, that's unclear in the site plans, so if you could include that in the statistics as to what the coverage is existing and with the proposed plan, what that's going to be. The handicap space, just giving more detail as to the parking lot, marking the ingress, egress, providing the width of the ingress, egress, also the curb cut, and the sidewalk. The street amenities, whatever you're proposing to show on the site plan, that's not quite included in the plans as of right now. The lot modification maps, because the one building sits on a couple parcels, that we'll have to get a lot modification application submitted and approved prior to the approval. Once the application, the missing documents are submitted, then the application can move forward in the process of getting sent for referral to the Albany County Planning Board. The planning board can't take any action till they get to review it. So the sooner we get it, the sooner we can get on their schedule. They're on their own schedule as well. This also gets circulated when the application is complete to the other city departments to get their review in. So that process of sending it to them, getting their comments, getting those comments to you does take a lot of time. So the sooner we can get that going, it's probably good for the project as well. It came up before, there's the 12 spots, parking spaces that are missing. You did submit waivers. We probably need to have a conversation as to additional justification on those waivers. It was an application that sort of stated what waivers you were looking for. So you probably need a little more justification as to where, what, and what is the alternative being proposed, or why why the waiver is being sought for said justification. Couple other items are covered in your waivers, the landscaping and buffering and screening, so, I'll defer to that when you get some more justification or some alternatives that could be provided in lieu of the standards that are in the code for that. And there's some detail which is included in the staff report that's on the site plan but doesn't show on the floor plan or vice versa, or their alternate information, so that'll be updated, I imagine, as we get into more detailed plans. The lighting schedule, if the site plan could include a lighting plan, including photometrics as to what that covers, that goes towards the security, that, we're looking for as well. And the signage, if you can provide what signage you'd be proposing.
It's definitely an interesting site.
And just to call out the seeker, it's classified as an unlisted action. The part 1 is completed by the applicant. The part 2 and 3 would be completed by the planning board. We'll be doing that in the following next. And upon completion of that, we'll do the determination of significance.
All right. I know we don't have any action on this, but thank you so much
Very good.
for getting us familiar with phase 1, step 1, and we look forward to seeing you at future meetings.
Alright, great. Have a good night, guys.
Thanks.
You too.
Is there any other business? All right, well, seeing as no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded without objection. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. All right, everybody.
Quick question for you guys. So the building behind my house was demolished. Who do I talk to about I think it's probably from the city because it didn't come